I'm a hot boy, getting all I can get. Live the lifestyle of a wise guy, pretty women and zips. Yeah, I'm a hot boy.
You can bet your ass I'm a hot boy. Yep, I'm a hot boy.
Life is a hot bar. Pretty women, fast cars, toting toasters. Better watch who you get close up, cause a nigga could be after your throne. People always testing the strong. Best believe one step in his own. I'm a wise guy. Keeping it quiet with bullshit that rise. Everything kept on the hush. Some shit ain't never discussed. Loose lips can get you locked up, carried away.
Only troops that pay dues know where you stay.
I didn't see the poles running where people lay. Sitting on about a key. I can't let that shit happen to me. Never stash out when you crash out. Gotta be quick on your feet.
All right, here we go.
Good deal. How my mic sound?
Sound good, sound good. Round two.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the King and I Life podcast with your boy, Soul Touch the Poet, and my brother.
Son, so Lex.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try it again. All right, today's conversation, suicide should no longer be taboo. All right, suicide is a global issue that affects everyone regardless of race, gender, economic class, social status, and age. That being said, the United States alone, the highest suicide rates are amongst white males, 25.4%, Native American / Alaskan natives, 14.6%, and black males, 12.6%. These statistics are alarming, to say the least. As we dive deeper into this conversation, we will reveal more stats to further this discussion. And this information is coming from cdc.gov and save.org. Son Solex, what say you?
Yes, this is a continuation of our previous gathering of podcasters, which we did a segment with Miss Donna. And yeah, it's definitely one of those topics that where people feel it's taboo to talk about, and it's like, why? Why is it taboo when the rate is steadily increasing, when it should be decreasing at this point? I mean, we don't know exactly how long suicide has been going on, but I'm sure it's been going on far longer than I've been on this planet. So at this stage and at this age, if anything, I would think our societies would be working towards more of making the rates go down. And it's sad, when people feel like they have to self-delete in order to alleviate their pains.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it's just a crazy thing out there for this to be going on, and no answers out there really. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, what the solution could be, where to start, or anything like that. It's just one of those things that's just hard to deal with all over.
Yeah, because again, we got into a place in society where, uh, where the paradigm has shifted. There once was a time when family was pretty much everything that our government and our society pushed. And now more and more, it's like the hell with family, and anything and everything else but family comes first, which is still, mind-boggling to me, because we always had, back in the day, someone you can talk to, even if that was just Big Mama or, uh, Pawpaws, they used to say. There was always someone there in control of the family, or pushing the family, where if anything was, bothering a member of the family, they could always go and talk to that one particular person about it and not have the fear of anything being leaked or told to other members of the family without
Yeah.
their knowledge.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and then with the crazy things with social media and stuff like that, um, things have gotten real crazy out there. It's you know, people are on social media looking for validation, um, and when they don't get it, it just causes them to go in the opposite direction. I don't know when that or why that has even become a factor in people's lives. It's like, and it's like no matter how old people are, that social media validation is it's like a drug.
It is.
But yeah, I don't even know where to start with that one.
Yeah, it really is a drug, as you said, because um, I find myself sometimes just having to unplug from it,
Mm,
and it's like you want, like when I'm posting stuff, I want our viewers and listeners to be engaged, and you want people to tune in and see what you have going on. But I'm at that age where I also understand that this is just entertainment, more or less. Yes, it helps get your message out there, and yes, it spreads the word of the things that you're trying to do on social media. But at the end of the day, people have lives going on. So, with that being said, like I said, I unplug and let that be that because it is a drug. You can get addicted to it. Every time you turn around, you're on your phone, or you're staring at your phone, or you waiting to
yeah.
hear that chime from your phone saying that you got a message or a like or a thumbs up, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
But some people, they just, because they may lack other engaging things in their lives, they feel like this is it for me. I have to have this attention, and if I don't get it, then it puts me in a state of depression, which is truly sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Very sad. Very sad. Very sad. So yeah, let's get into it. What is suicide? Suicide is death by caused by injuring oneself with the intent to die, and then we have suicide attempt. Someone harms themselves with any intent to end their life, but they do not die as a result of their actions. Um, yeah, that's a lot there, man. Um, when I jumped on earlier, I said during this broadcast I'm gonna use I as in myself a lot to make it personal, and I was saying that everybody goes through something out there. It doesn't matter who you are or anything like that. We all deal with something. Um, I've dealt with a lot of issues that some people may not have been able to deal with, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, like during the course of this broadcast, I'm gonna use I a lot. Not to
Right.
say everything that I say is related to me, but I just want to make it personal so that people out there can identify with the things that are being said on here.
Correct. Understood. Um, I too will have to partake in that. I mean, I would be a lie, and I'll be honest with our audience. As a young man, um, as I've stated before, I've dealt with a lot of issues growing up. Um, so there were times when I did have those thoughts of just wanting the pain to go away, and I'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like every child or every person on this planet more or less have gone through those type of situations where you just mentally you're going through so much pain you just want it all to go away. So we look at alternatives to making the pain go away, and sometimes those alternatives are not the best solutions, none whatsoever. um, I've heard about people when I was in high school actually self-deleting themselves,
Oh wow.
and it would be like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Like this person was such a happy person, or I thought that person was cool, or something along that line." And I don't know. It was just back then. It was so important to be so popular and so liked, and again, you have to have the right clothes and hang out with the right people and
Mm-hmm.
be invited to all the parties and things along that nature. And then you'll have some people who just want outside of those circles. Um, I'm one of those people where, like, the first, I say 10th, 11th grade was when I was like on the outside of those circles.
Mm-hmm.
When I got into the 12th grade, my final years, when everything started blowing up for me as far as my popularity and all of that. But um, I don't know. I just never really cared for all of that. My parents, thank goodness, always taught me that it's not about your clothes, because your clothes don't make you the man. It's not about how much money you got. It's about your life and how you choose to live it. But um, those times to me were a whole lot simpler
Mm-hmm.
compared to what our kids are facing now,
Yeah.
and it's only going to continue to get, for the lack of a better word, more difficult. Because a while back we were doing a podcast on something, and I can't even tell you what the topic was, but I was doing the research on it, and it was talking about how much kids nowadays, they feel like if you have less followers than them, you guys can't run in the same circles.
Mm.
You got to have at least as many followers as I do in order for me to associate with you.
That's crazy.
And that even comes down to dating someone at such a young age. I'm like, what the hell is the world coming to here? It can't be that serious. No way.
Nah, it can't be.
But yeah, I definitely feel those pains, and my heart goes out to anyone who's even considering doing that. But I will tell you this: if you hold on, things will get better. They will
Mm.
always get better, man. It's just like a changing of the seasons, as they say. Like you're gonna have some winters, which is cold and lonely, and you just trying to get somewhere to get warm. But if you just hold on, summer will come back around. I promise you. The sun will be out.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate because yeah, that popularity thing back in school was crazy. It's like if you wasn't popular, what I was told, like I think I was in the seventh grade, and there was this girl named Stephanie. I can't remember her last name, Mansua or something like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, we was having a conversation, and she was like, "You got to be popular and fine." It was like, damn, I'm none of that. I'm none of that. Well, I didn't think I was any of that.
Right.
I was a shy kid and all that stuff. So that popular thing, it wasn't even on my radar. Um, but yeah, it took me probably like 10th, 11th grade, 12th grade before I became popular or whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
or somebody that was known. Um, yeah, but other than that, I was like nobody. It was tough. Not tough as the kids in the states, but it was tough.
Yeah.
Because people came from all over, and it's like if you came from a certain place in the states, you had instant notoriety. Um, if you was outgoing, you had instant notoriety. If you had some flair to you, you was somebody.
Yep.
Um, but I dealt with a lot of situations, even before Germany and in Germany, where I was like, I don't want to be here, and I had those thoughts. And quite honestly, um, what grade was I in? I was probably in the 10th grade, 11th grade. I called myself trying to commit suicide. I took a whole bunch of what was it? Muscle relaxers, nothing strong, like like it was literally nothing strong. Um, but yeah, I did that, and like it didn't affect me anything like that. And it's like after that moment, that was just like something I did and never did again. At so yeah,
Oh my God, dude.
yeah,
Dude, I have never ever spoke of this, but I went through that same situation. I actually took like aspirin.
yeah. Aspirin,
I took an overdose of aspirin, like thinking this will do it.
right?
This will get me out of here. And man, my ass ended up staying awake for like 3 days.
Mm,
I was like, Lord, please, if you just get me through this, and I'm having all kind of body aches and
mm.
stomach aches, and oh, it was horrible. I was like, I would never ever in my life try this again.
Ever, like yeah,
But thank goodness I chose the wrong weapon
you know.
of choice.
We can sit here and laugh about it now because it was like
Yeah.
back then it was like one of those things. It's like I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know why or how that thought came into my mind. I don't know. I probably heard of people doing that,
Hmm.
and that's why I did it. But to honestly know where that act came from, I couldn't tell you. Um, but one thing I do know is, you know, that's how a lot of people end up doing stuff like that is because they've seen it somewhere or heard it somewhere, and so they say, "Well, I'm gonna try that too." So, um, yeah, that's one way people, you know, mirror or copycat some of those things.
Yep. And I couldn't even tell you why, thinking about it now, why I felt like I wanted to do that. I think I was just a not so smart kid feeling like the pressures that, you know, young people go through at that time. I just wanted no parts of it. Um, my teenage years, like I said, 10th, 11th, or ninth, 10th, and 11th, was for the most part me just being on the outside. Um, and I was fine with that. It was kind of like I had my group of friends and we were cool and we all did what we wanted to do. Um, I think my biggest thing that killed me being able to socialize outside of my circle at that time was I had a very strict mother.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like people would all the time invite me to parties or come hang out, with the more popular sets, as they say. But no, no, my mother wasn't having it, especially because my dad was gone so much.
Mm.
But anyway, every now and then I would just have to break the rules and take the punishment.
You're right. Yeah, it be like that.
So, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like I was saying on the previous episode of, like when you graduate from high school, people don't freaking remember any of that. They don't really necessarily care who was the most popular person or
Mm-mm.
who had the nicest car or had the nicest clothes, because at that point everybody's trying to determine what's the next move.
Yeah.
Do I go in the military? Do I go to college? Do I go to trade school? Or do I just get a job? You know,
Mm.
so it's just one of those things that everybody goes through, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. Pretty much. Um. So let's jump into factors that contribute to suicide, and the first thing that we have on here is stressful life events. Um, this can cover a lot of things, and it also um, blends into the other topics that we have in this. Um, like one stressful life event could be moving to an unknown place, you know,
Yep.
and that's something that we both could relate to because we moved, we were military brats and we was always moving. Um, for a child to have to adjust to those things, um, it can be stressful because it's like you got friends or you're close to your family, then you have to up and move, and then as soon as you get settled, comfortable with the environment and the people, you got your best friends, this, that, and other. Now it's time to go somewhere else, and you got to start over. Um, and it's a constant thing that goes on. But I will say from that, um, it builds strength and resiliency because you are able to adjust to different situations better. But moving to a foreign place, whether it's across the country or across the world, that's a stressful event.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, like you're saying, once you are already established and you've been there, for some years, 3 years, you good. But then when you find out, okay, just got orders, we're moving again. You're like, dude, like, no, man, I'm good right now. I'm good. Don't tell me we're
Mm-hmm.
moving again. And next thing you know, you're starting all over again. You have to find out who's really your friends and who's not your friends, and who's gonna be the wild one and who's the very soft-spoken one, and so
Mm-hmm.
on and so forth. And again, you have to start over, trying to feel your way out while trying to readjust to the new school system and their rules and regulations and all of that.
Yeah. The crazy thing about it is back then we didn't have social media and stuff like that. So it was like when we moved, it's either you making long distance phone calls or writing letters. Like writing letters. Um, I think the a benefit of kids today is they got social media, so it's like you can tap into somebody just real quick. It's not a 2 3 day 4 day a week 2 week exchange with communication if you're writing letters.
Yeah.
And it's not a thing of um, worrying about the cost of a long distance phone call because you got all kind of video call apps out there and text messaging that you can do worldwide. It's like they're so in touch now that I would think that it's a lot easier, but for us, it was like I can remember when I left Germany, I made sure I got whoever's address I needed to get, and I was writing letters like it was no tomorrow, trying to keep in touch with people because my mother sent me to Florida, and I was out there like that was that was depressing. Um,
Hmm.
you know, and I didn't have nobody, so yeah, I just had to find a way to deal with it.
Yeah, and I did that too when I left Germany, and somehow or another I lost everyone's address, and I was so freaking heartbroken.
Mm,
I had everyone's address and I had everyone's pictures, cause that last week or so, that's all I was doing was just taking pictures.
mm-hmm,
And I was like, I got this, I got this. So in between moving and shuffling things around, I have no idea where that particular box or container went
mm.
containing all of that information. And I
Wow.
was so heartbroken, man. That was another part of the reason why I got depressed. Was like, man, all my friends,
Mm-hmm.
I have no way to contact them. I
Right.
can't even write them a freaking letter. So that
Yeah.
sucked ass.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you on that. Yeah. Cause I was like, I was writing people to get people to write me, people that I like, some people's addresses I didn't get. So it was like, damn, I don't got their address. I ain't gonna never hear from them again. It was like, damn. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
But loss of a loved one, that, whew, that's a heavy one.
Mm.
Because as a teenager, that's basically when um, the elders in my family start dropping off there a little bit. I mean, my grandparents, um, I only have one grandmother left. So having to go through that, man, that was a lot. Um, just having to deal with them not being there anymore.
Right.
Being able to call up my grandma, my granddad, and being able to spend time with them and, enjoy them at the drop of a dime if I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to. So that and older cousins is like, whoa. So yeah, it's a lot for a young person to go through, man, both male and female.
You know, that is one thing that I've never ever really experienced too tough. Um, I know a lot of people who have, and some of them have been grieving for years, like a long time, and it's like that's something that I can't relate to. Like I literally cannot relate to that, but I understand it. Um, but I don't have anyone that close, like family wise, to where I can totally identify with that. Um, but yeah, that I see that a lot when people are in situations where they're married to someone for a very very long time, or their love is so deep for each other that they feel empty if that person you know dies or whatever the case may be, and they feel like either they can't live without that person, or it's like they want to be with that person that bad that they take their life. um Again, I can't identify with that, but
Right.
that's deep. That's real. That's something real deep.
Yeah. I remember a lot of my friends, like when we graduated from high school, a lot of them went into the military, and
Hmm.
again, they were all trying to talk me into going, go, go, go. And again, I wish I would have listened and went.
Hmm.
But my thinking at that time was I hate it because the only thing I was thinking about was the fact that every time I made friends, I had to move again. I wasn't looking at the fact of all the benefits that come with,
Right.
going into the military. But yeah, it's just one of those things of I know my dad, he met so, or we as a family met so many cool people.
Hmm.
Like he would, my dad's house or my parents' house was like the hangout spot for their friends.
Right.
So every Friday or Saturday night, and sometimes Sunday, that's where everybody was. And of course, they be having their good old time, and the kids would be interacting, and all of that. So once you did move, um, all of that was gone.
Yeah.
Like,
The other thing I want to point out with that, loss of a loved one, um, and this is something that has happened. I know it's happened. I've heard of it happen. I've seen it in the news and heard stories. You know, if someone's favorite celebrity dies, some people that may be a trigger for someone to commit suicide or harm themselves. Um, we probably don't hear about that as much anymore, but that is something that happens. And the crazy part, well, not the crazy part, the interesting part about that is they may have never met this celebrity, but in their mind and in their heart, or whatever the case may be, that celebrity is everything to them. It's like they have a link to that celebrity that is that tight that something happens to that celebrity, they get depressed and anything else, and they end up taking their life.
Yeah, I mean, I have kind of a connection with Biggie, right?
Mm-hmm.
My brother-in-law knew Biggie personally.
Mm.
Um, I can't say how tight they were, but they had a friendship. So when Biggie died, watching him go through that, um, it kind of affected me. Plus, I was a fan of his music.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, when Tupac passed, that devastated me.
Mm.
Like, I was such a Tupac fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's that's the dude. That's the greatest of all times. Um, Back then to me. Um, so when he passed, it seemed like the world was just unreal at that point.
Mm.
So I get why people, um, can go into that state of depression because again, you never met the person before, but through their music and their expression and watching them as they live their lives, you feel like you know this person.
Mm-hmm.
So, there have been, R&B singers that I've grown up off of their music, like, let's see, what's his name? Al Green was one of my personal favorites, and I want to say Al is still here, but there's one R&B singer besides Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson died, that was devastating. When
Mm.
Prince died, that was devastating.
Mm.
Um, I can't think of his name, but oh my goodness, I took it so personal, and I know I didn't grow up nowhere near his era, but he was just one of those artists that, again, I grew up off his music,
Mm-hmm.
so I felt like I knew him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever felt like that connected to a famous person that I felt that I would take my life. I honestly will say, like, when Whitney Houston died, I was angry.
That's another
Um,
one.
but I wasn't in a place to where I felt like my life was in shambles. And I'll say I was angry because she was my favorite singer.
Right.
And, just to being on the outside of watching her rise and hit the top and then decline to the point where it's, she died the way she did,
Yeah.
I was angry. Um, but never, I was never to the point to where I felt like um, I need to end my life because of it. I will honestly say Whitney Houston and countless of other famous people who died the way she did is one of the um, one of the things that would keep me from committing suicide. Um, because their deaths are, it's like they are out of control to whatever's going on in their lives, and they're doing these things that contribute to their demise. So it's like I looked at that and I was like, nah, I can't go down that path.
Yeah.
And I can say I've had rough days, um, probably not as rough as any of theirs, but it's a lot of things that they um, could have been doing, allegedly been doing, or whatever the case may be, that also contributed that I find myself that I would never, ever, ever do. Um, and again, I don't have as much pressure on me as they do. So, I just, when I look at that, I just like, nah, I can't. You know, Prince died, Michael Jackson died, from the way that they died. you
Right.
know, I've kind of become numb to it because even when I look at, family and friends and the things that they do, for instance, like when, people engage in drugs and stuff like that, um, I have to become numb to that because it's like, you know, those actions can contribute to your demise. Um, and I don't know if um, drug abuse, drug use is classified as a method of suicide. But in my mind, I would say it is because it's like, the hazards of doing that and you still do it. And you never know, one day you may purposely or not purposely do too much or whatever that looks like, and you end up, dying. So I don't know if that would be classified as suicide, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like in my mind, there's always Whitney, Michael Jackson, Prince, and Madonna.
Hmm.
Those were the top of the tops to me. Um, Bobby Womack was the artist I was trying to think of,
Okay.
but I don't know. It's there. All of those people's deaths affected me in a way of kind of casting me into a state of a little bit of depression. Not to the point that it made me want to do anything to myself, but to that point of, just feeling like there's a loss,
Hmm.
there's a void that I'll never be able to get back.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely can relate to it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the next one is military service. um yeah, this is a big one because over the years, lots of service members have committed suicide, taking their lives for many, many, many reasons. Um, One of the reasons that they have done it is because their spouses cheated on them. Um, People may not be aware of that, or some may be aware of it, but when someone deploys and they're in the Middle East or wherever they are, their husband or wife is back there just doing whatever they doing. Um, and the sad thing about it is, there's some situations to where the man is deployed overseas and his wife is cheating on him, and they'll get a video in the mail. They think it's a video of the wife and the family, this, that, and the other, and it could be a video of the wife and the other man doing whatever they're doing. Or just finding out that you know the wife or the husband is laying up with the best friend while you over there fighting the war, or the there's someone else in your house with your child on their lap playing mommy or daddy while you over here. Um, and that kills people's spirits, and it yeah, that's just one thing. I if I'm not mistaken, um, when I went to Iraq, this one guy, his wife was, she had, he had came back and she had cleaned out the house, cleaned out the bank accounts, and was gone. And I think he had committed suicide because of that.
Wow. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've seen, heard, everything goes through the wire, as they say, also in the military branch, when things like that occur. And I remember one of my neighbors when we were living in Germany. Matter of fact, there was this guy named Richard. I can't remember his last name, but they lived upstairs from us, and he was kind of a skinny guy, but a cool guy. And his wife was a little bit on the thicker side.
Hmm.
But there are many a times I would come home from either school or hanging out, um, and I would witness them going right past our apartment, going right upstairs.
Wow.
Like everything was good. I'm like, this is not gonna end well. So sure enough, when he got back from his uh, temporary duty station, and he found out, it got ugly.
Mm.
And I remember, they pretty much woke the whole building up, arguing one night. Um, Long story short, they ended up getting a divorce. He didn't. No one went to jail or no one got their behind beat, but they did get a divorce.
Well, it's good it ended that way.
Yeah, but yeah, that's. I always thought to myself though, how selfish can you be to do that to someone while they're actually out there putting their life on the line, not only for their country but for you?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's a heavy one.
Definitely.
I said to myself, and I live by this. I was deployed to Iraq one time, and I said, when I deploy, I'm cutting off everything and everybody that was in that position in my life. Because I did not, you know, my trust, my trust like that,
Yeah.
it's not there. And and again, let me see. But I went in '04, so I joined in '91. So I was in long enough to hear these stories frequently. So I told myself, if I ever get deployed, I'm cutting everything and everybody off. And I did that because it was like, you know, I don't even want to be in that situation to where I might think I might have to harm myself to that extent because someone I cared for or loved cheated on me or emptied my bank account or did something else to put me in a bad position to where I thought my world was over. I just there was no way. Um, Trust and believe. I got argued up and down about it, but it was like, nah. um, I could be selfish by making that decision without having a conversation, but yeah, I've heard too many times of that happening to people. Um, and here's the crazy thing: I was stationed at Fort Knox, and I think, well, my mother was stationed at Fort Hood. And when I was stationed at, I mean, my mother was stationed at Fort Drum in upstate New York. The first time I went up there, I was stationed at Fort Hood. My oldest son was born. I think I went up there twice, but one of the times I went up there, I met this young lady. Um, Come to find out, she was married. Um, Her husband was deployed, and opportunity was there, so I hopped on it, and I didn't think nothing of it. And I had dealt with her for like a couple years or whatever, but yeah, I didn't, you know, at that time I didn't, I was like, all right, it's an opportunity. I'm gonna jump on this.
Right.
But yeah, it was like that. And I know one of the last times I had saw her, her husband was back from deployment, and she made time to come see me or whatever. And it was like, yo, I can't deal with that. It's too much. Like, I'm not going to be contributing to whatever that is going on
Yeah. I can totally get it. Because me being the type of person I would, if anything was to happen to him, I would feel so bad about it. I mean, his wife is a grown person. She do know what she's doing fully, but I would still feel bad for him. But anyway, um, breakup. As far as young people, I remember when I had done graduated from high school and I was going to college up in Nashville, and I got that Dear John letter. Oh, there was this girl named Flossie. Oh, I just thought, me and her, we're it. We're gonna married. We're gonna have kids. We're gonna live together and be a happy married couple forever. But thank God that never went down. But anyway, I got that letter, and man, I was riding so high that day. It was a Friday, a matter of fact. I got that letter, and everybody got their letters from their girlfriends, and everything was going so good. And I read that letter, and I sat down there on my bed in my dorm room, and I was reading it, and she basically told me, "Well, I'm seeing someone else now, so
Mm.
you take care of yourself." I'm like,
Wow.
this bitch.
Mm.
It ruined my weekend.
I can
Ruined
imagine.
my weekend, but eventually I got over it. But yeah, it definitely mentally had an effect on me
Mm.
because it took me at least a good dang month to get over that. Just young and in love.
Look here. Have I been there? Too many times, boy. Too many times. Um, yeah. I can laugh at it now,
Yeah,
but
definitely now.
when I was going through it, I was going through it like a breakup, like certain breakups that you did that I've had, and I probably had I want to say 5 or 6 breakups throughout my lifetime that had me on the floor in the fetal position, wishing my life was over. Um, Not making an attempt to end my life, but just saying to myself, I don't want to live no more. I can't live without her, and this, that, and the other. And it's
Yeah.
like I'm sitting there, boo hoo, snot coming out my nose, boo hoo.
Mm-hmm.
And the funniest thing about it is I had to get myself together because some of those times I was just a jackass in those relationships, and I rightfully deserved the breakup. Um, but then when I look back at stuff, it's like, why am I falling all over the floor and wishing I was not here anymore? And it's that and the other one. It's like, I've been through this before. Like, I've been through a breakup. It's not that serious. It's not that bad. And that's what I was telling myself.
All right.
Um, and the one thing is there are a lot of people out there in the world who go through that same vicious cycle of makeup, breakup, whatever. And it's like sometimes we forget that we either broke up with someone or someone has broken up with us, and that it only lasts for a hot minute until you have to focus on what you need to do with yourself. Um, but some people just can't take it. Like, I remember seeing a video on, I don't know if it was on YouTube or Facebook a while ago, where this young guy, I don't know if they broke up, but I think they did. But they was riding in an elevator, and the elevator got to her floor. I think they had kissed. She got out the elevator. Elevator door closed, and he took his life. I was like, yo.
Yeah, I saw that one.
I'm like, wow. Like, and the crazy. And here's the crazy thing about it: we all go through these things, and we think, oh, life is too much, this, that, and the other, and then we get ourselves together, and then we see something or hear something like that happens, and we're saying, how could this person do that to themselves? And it's a weird thing to where it's like we know it's not that serious when we see somebody else go through it or hear somebody else go through it, and we're sad and all this, that, and the other, and we're like, why in the world would they do that? And it's like, then when we're going through it, we always forget that it's not that serious.
Right. Definitely. Because having, been in both sets of those shoes, um, when you're going through it and you passionately love someone like that, you feel like, it's me. I'm. What did I do to make this person not love me, or how come they don't love me in the same fashion that I love them? And for the most part, it's not you. It really is the other person.
Yeah.
It really is them. So you could be the greatest person in the world to them, but for whatever reason, whatever they experience in their life, or maybe they're just not in the same space as you mentally, as far as maturity, they decide to break up with you. But it's a horrible feeling to find out someone don't love you the same way that you love them.
Hmm.
But you get over it. You move on. You find someone else new eventually.
Yeah. Yep. Sure do. But I wanted to touch on military service again because there are other factors like discrimination in the military, not getting a promotion, or um, you messing up something and you think it's the end of the world, or sometimes deployment period is stressful on a person. So there's a lot of other factors in military service that cause people to commit suicide. So I didn't want to brush over that.
Hmm.
Um, so now let's talk about financial and legal problems as a contributing factor. Um, Again, I'm making this personal to me because I know I've been through a lot of these situations, and I know a lot of people out there can relate. Um, I have been in financial situations and throughout my life to where I was like, I do not want to deal with this anymore. There is no way out. My life is screwed. I just can't do it. Let me tell you, when I was young in the army, before I got married, before I had my first child, I did not have a care in the world. But soon as that dynamic changed in my life, my financial situation was shit. Like, I can't even remember the name of the bank, but whatever bank that was, I want to say it was First National Bank, whatever it was. But I will tell you, every paycheck that I got was bringing my account out of the negative. Like literally, between every paycheck, my bank account was overdrawn. Um, I had there was this place called Maplehurst, and you can get they give you a card and a credit limit, and like you can go get gas, food, this, that, and the other. That
Hmm.
was overdrawn. Like robbing Peter to pay Paul was an understatement. Um, and I felt like, hey, I can't do this anymore because like I had a new wife, I had a new child, I had a car note, I had rent, I had bills. I was the only one working. I was what, 19, 20 at the time. I just like it was hard. It was hard to deal with. Like I saw no way out and I did not want to be a part of it, but I didn't think that um I don't know, I just didn't think about suicide, really think about it, but
Hmm.
it was always in my mind, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I wish I can disappear, and that is one thing that drives people over the edge, especially if you have a financial situation that puts your job in jeopardy. Um, and another situation that I've had more recently, back during my third marriage, I had to file for bankruptcy. Um, that was the most internally embarrassing thing that I had to do. People do it every day. Um, you know, whether it's a person, a business, or whatever the case may be, and it's not the end of the world. Like I've known people who've done it before me, and they maneuvered through it. But when I had to make that decision, I felt like it was just the worst thing in the world, and I was the worst person in the world because I didn't protect my finances like I should. Um, whether it was all on me or because of my situation, I just felt like I just don't want to do this anymore. And it was so many thoughts running through my head, but never to the point to where I said I'm gonna commit suicide. But trust me, mentally, somewhere in my brain, I was close to it.
Yeah, man. That financial. Ooh, that's a big one too because again, I've been there with you as far as the bankruptcy. And my situation was I was doing so well from a financial standpoint.
Hmm.
I had a very nice vehicle back then. I had a motorcycle, I had a very nice apartment. I had business dealings going on. And I was making everything work and it was just me and my craziness, back then of trying to help my friend who was my business partner and help my girlfriend who, was technically making more freaking money than I was owning her own business, but she still couldn't afford to pay her own bills.
Mm.
So here I am paying her bills, and every time my partner comes around saying, "Hey, I need this," well, go ahead, bro, I got you. Thinking, this guy has the same mentality of me. If I need it and he has it, it's mine as well.
Right.
But no, stupid mistake on my part. Um, so once I lost my high paying job and, you know, other things from a business standpoint start falling through because I didn't have the money to keep everything going. It was like watching everything fall around you. Like
Hmm.
you can no longer afford to pay your rent.
Mm.
You can no longer afford this nice car payment. You can no longer afford your motorcycle payment. You can damn near afford to pay your car insurance. And once those pressures started coming down on me, I was like, how in the hell am I gonna get through this?
Right.
Like it was just the sheer and my ego was so bruised and embarrassed by it, because at that time I was very well respected in some circles, like Jay really got his shit together, he doing it, so on and so forth. And then to be that high up and then not gradually come down, but damn near
Yeah.
crash and burn. That was very hard for me to accept. And even though I had to turn in the vehicle that I had, I just called up the bank. I was like, hey, I can't afford to pay for this anymore. And I don't want you guys, coming around my associates or my home or my parents' house looking for this damn thing. So where can I turn it in at?
Mm.
But anyway, after that, coming to that realization that I'm not the man anymore, that really sent me through a psychological whirlwind
Hmm.
because I'm like, I'm a good guy. Things like
Right.
this aren't supposed to happen to me. I look out for everyone. So now it's my turn for people to look out for me and no one's coming to my rescue. That realization alone of no one's going to help you, that was devastating to me.
Right.
So anyway, but to make a long story short, I end up filing bankruptcy and that feeling of having everything you want or possibly want to not having anything, having to actually beg someone to live on their couch or sleep on their couch.
Yeah.
That type of situation, it was like, oh my God, this is the worst. But one thing I did learn from that, once I actually had to go to court for it, and my lawyer was like, don't worry about it. You got it.
Hmm.
Everything matches up. All the numbers are right. We've gone through it, so don't
Hmm.
sweat it. But after I walked out of that courthouse that day, I felt like a ton of freaking bricks had been lifted off my shoulder.
Mm,
And it gave me a new perspective on life because I felt like, so now I see who my real friends are.
right.
Now I see that, with having success and not having success, the mental fortitude that it will take you through in order to make you a better person.
Right.
So, yeah, that was a tough one, but lesson learned.
Yeah, man. That's definitely a tough pill to swallow. And it for me, it was never taking care of people. It was just like I don't know. Like I go through this. I was going through bouts of where I was good, and then as soon as I bring someone into my mix, everything went left. And it's like, how did things go left? And it's like I don't know. And that's why, like to this day, I'm never ever going to. I'm not gonna say never. Um, well, I'm never going to put myself in a situation to where I compromise my stability. Um, that's the one thing I'm not going to do because, you know, when I'm stable, I'm good. And I don't want to put myself in a position to where I'm looking out for people who are not bringing balance back to me. It's like if I'm doing enough to make you whole or make you stable, make you comfortable, make you safe, you got to be, giving back because at the end of the day, if I'm overextending myself for you and I'm not getting nothing back, then that leaves me in a situation to where I have to figure all of this out. I have to wonder what's what. And and some people just don't care. And they're so comfortable that they don't respect or even see the pressure that you may be under. And that's another thing about it, because you are so focused on helping other people and you're overextending yourself and you don't want to say nothing just to keep the peace or whatever the situation is, your insides are tearing up. So,
Yeah.
that's one of those things. But, on the flip side of that, I've never had any, well, have I? No, I've never really had any legal issues that would drive me that far over the edge. Um, yeah, like, maybe. I know when I got my license suspended, I thought that was the end of the world. Matter of fact, I will use that as an example because when I got my driver's license suspended, I thought it was the end of the world. I felt like I was useless, worthless, and it was the end of the world. Like depending on people for a ride, and the people that I did depend on for a ride, it's like I'm on their time. So it's like if I say I gotta be somewhere at a specific time and waiting for them to get me there, that brings on a whole lot of stress and a lot of pressure because it's like
Hmm.
if I can't tell my job I'm late because my ride wasn't on time. Because it's like I'm at their mercy. And, that's one of those things where it was like, I feel like I'm a burden. I feel like what I have to do is not important because you don't have to do anything, and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was definitely a rough time for me because it took forever for me. Well, not forever. It just took a long time for me to get that right. With my driver's license, this, that, and the other. And I said once and the crazy part about it is I was pumped because I got my driver's license back, whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
and then came back and it got suspended again because of the points. Like I got suspended because of my tickets and this, that, and the other. But I had like 8 points or however many points, and they suspended it because of that. And that was another stake in the back. So it was like, yo, I can't deal. I just can't deal with this no more. I don't want to deal with it. So yeah. It's not serious overall in the big grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But for me at that time, it was like I don't even feel like a man.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest legal problem was speeding tickets. Back in my younger days, back when I was street racing and everything else, man, it wasn't It seemed like every time I turned around, I was getting a goddamn speeding ticket.
Wow.
And it wasn't even a matter of having to pay the tickets. It was having to face the fact that I got to go home and tell my parents or
Oh
call my parents because I'm on their insurance
wow. Ah, right.
and tell them, hey, got another speeding ticket.
Mm,
And I remember one time, man, I was just so freaking depressed. I got a ticket and I wasn't even trying to. That's the sad part
wow.
about it. Wasn't even trying to. Uh, I was taking my girlfriend home at the time and she had to be back at a certain time, which she didn't announce to me until the last minute.
Really?
So, anyway, I'm trying to get her home. I go around this curve, and next thing I know, I see a state trooper. I'm like, oh,
Mm,
fuck. So, next thing you know, he's pulling me over, giving me the ticket. And I had gotten so many tickets, and I was like, man, I don't want to tell my parents this. They're probably going to kick me off their damn insurance after this.
right.
But I held on to it so long, man. It just mentally took its effect on me, or had its effect on me. And then I remember my mom coming up on my room, like, "What's going on with you? You seem different. Like,
Mm,
what's the problem?" So I told her what was going on. Thank goodness for that day. She was understanding, but she was like, "Don't ever hold on to something like that
right.
because nothing should have you where your whole demeanor is different, where
Exactly.
we don't recognize you."
Hmm.
So anyway, yeah, that's about the extent of my legal problem.
Yeah.
I did some other things, but we're not going to talk about
Right.
those.
We're not gonna talk about that. Mm.
But substance abuse,
Whew. Yeah.
that's a big one also.
Very big. Very big.
Um, to that, I've been very fortunate because one thing about all the childhood trauma that I went through, it basically forced me not to partake in in recreational drugs because I saw the effect of alcoholism um, at a very early age. So I'm like, dude, if you do that just on alcohol, who knows what the hell you do on other things.
Mm.
But man, I remember going to high school, especially in Virginia. You know, like when I left Germany and came back to the States, we were stationed in, was it Fort Eustis? I think it was Fort Eustis. But anyway, kids my age and younger would be coming to school fucked up. I
Mm.
mean, higher than a kite
Wow.
or drunk as heck. And I'm like, what kind of lives are y'all living? You coming to school like this?
Right.
It just made things very, I'm not going to say awkward, but interesting
Of course.
because I had never experienced that before. You know, going to an all military school uh, and then going into the civilian world where, of course, you're seeing the rampant drug use and the rampant alcohols or alcoholics. That's a whole nother world for me. I was like,
Mm.
so this is how they do it in the civilian world,
Right.
eh?
I mean, we was tripping over there because at the age of what, 16, 17, you could buy liquor in Germany. So, we've seen a lot of people go through it. But this is one reason why I just don't partake in substances now. This is one reason why I don't even like dealing with anyone who partakes in substances because in my mind, I don't know what your relationship is with these substances, and I don't know what all you doing or you dealing with, and I do not want to be around if something bad happens whether it's accident or purposeful or whatever. Um, and then to know that so many celebrities have lost their lives from substance abuse, whether it's they OD'd on purpose or by accident. Again, it's one of them things. To me, I look at it as a suicide because you know the damage that you're doing, and again, you go through stressors that I am not aware of, or whatever the case may be. So for me, um, it's just way, 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 way too much for me to deal with. So yeah. What's up, Keisha? Checking in the chat on Facebook. Um, but yeah, that's substance abuse is one of those things, and some people look at substance abuse. Well, honestly, well, statistically speaking, women are more likely to commit suicide um, with substances, whether it's pills or anything like that. Um, but yeah, I don't, you know, sometimes it's the substance abuse use that drives a person to commit suicide because they just keep going, and as we know, alcohol and drugs, they take you through emotional states and this, that, and the other, and we cannot omit the fact that sometimes prescriptions can do that, even if they're used properly. So, I mean, for me, I can't. Substance abuse is just not one of
Yeah, and it's horrible when you have to watch someone you know
my things.
go through things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I watch some people close to me who battle mental illnesses and doing illegal substances and trying to take their prescription substances. And it's like, how much is enough?
Right.
Like, are you really in that much pain that you need all of that? Like, where does it stop? But yeah, so it definitely plays a role in, someone's mental state. Only thing they're looking for is a release of some type,
Yeah.
and they think that by abusing these, whether legal or illegal substances, is going to alleviate that pain, and it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it just silences the voice in your head for a little while, and that's about it.
Yeah. That's another reason why I don't like taking medicine at all. I only take medicine if I have to, and I refuse to take narcotics. Like, like I had a procedure done probably 2012, 2013, and they gave me some oxycontin or something like that. I think
Hmm.
I took that joint like 2 times, and I was like, nah, I'm done. I can't. I can't. I didn't like the way it made me feel in my head. Um, but there are people out there who be like, "Oh, you got those? Let me get those." And it's like, I'm not giving you that. Like, why? Oh, you don't need it. You're right. I don't need it. Let me dump it. Because, you know, that stuff messes with your head, and
It does.
some people can't manage well. They think they can, but you know, I know a lot of people, friends, family, or whatever, who have used stuff like that to ease the pain, so to speak. Um, we talked about losing loved ones. I've seen people, drink excessively or use recreational drugs or whatever because they want to numb the pain of losing someone. But it's like, when you come down off that, does that erase the pain? Like, the pain doesn't go away.
No.
That person is still gone. You know, all you did was, I don't know. I can't, I don't understand what they're getting out of it by doing that other than uh, convincing themselves that they're making the pain go away. But you get sober. You either get sober or you harm yourself or you end your life. You know, It's one of those three things. It never takes it away. And there are some people out there who will convince you to the T that hey, it took the pain away. It's like, nah, no, it didn't. It really didn't.
Nope. It was like, for me, the biggest thing that, I'll be honest, that helped me get through my mental pains, as they say, throughout my life was sleep.
Mm-hmm.
When something I felt I just didn't want to feel, I went to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like there'd be days where, especially during the summer, man, I just stay in my room, only come out to eat, get a bath, go right back in my room. I'm going back right to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was the most relieving of the stress that I was under, way that I knew to get through it. You know, if I'm asleep, I don't have to think about it. If I'm asleep, I don't have to feel the pain. If I'm asleep, I don't have to face the reality of knowing what's going on in my life right now.
Right.
So, but yeah, that was one of the biggest things that helped me get through everything, just sleep it away.
Yeah, speaking of that, one of my coping methods when I go through stuff, it may be sleep if I'm really like bored or whatever. For
Mm.
me, I shut down. Like I shut down and say to myself, I block people out because I need my space. Um, but when it comes to your coping method and my coping method, um, we have to be careful and people have to be careful because sometimes people don't understand that that's your coping method and they can be overbearing to an extent to where they're pushing you and pushing you and pushing you and you're like, yo, I'm good, just let me chill or whatever
Right.
because and sometimes you don't want to explain and you don't have to explain. It's just like, yo, just let me have my space. But sometimes in certain situations, people will push and push and push and push because they want to know why you're sleeping so much or why you shut down, why you don't want to talk, and why you don't want to come out. And it's like there have been cases where that has caused a person to commit suicide because it's like I'm trying to deal with what I'm dealing with on my own, and you're nagging me, you're pushing me, you're overbearing, and it's like I don't even want to be here because now you're adding pressure on top of my trying to get over whatever I'm going through.
Yep.
And some people don't understand that. So it takes for people to know you and how you deal with stuff for them to understand that, if you're sleeping a lot, it's not because you're thinking about suicide. Or if you shut down and block people out, it's not because you're thinking about suicide, it's because those are your coping methods. Um, but then at the same time, you know, it is fair for people to inquire, but they have to find that balance, and it takes for people to know you in order to recognize that, all right, he's sleeping, you know, I'll check on him every now and then, see if he all right, and if you want to talk, you talk. Or he shut down, block people out, that's his coping method. I'll check on him here and there. If he say he good, he good. But, it's a balance, and it's all about understanding and knowing that individual.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I said sleeping was just my thing. I didn't take anything to make me go to sleep. I just would go in my room, close all the blinds, pitch dark was my friend, and just go to sleep. Turn on a fan, game over.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so let's talk about groups that are higher at risk. And the first thing is veterans. Um, so the thing about veterans, some of the things that make veterans higher risk for suicide is, you know, when they get out, um, they're used to a certain lifestyle,
All right.
and they've been doing it for however long that they've been doing it. When they get out, it's that drastic change, and they, feel like they're out of place. Like when I got off active duty in '95, I felt like that. It's like coming home trying to find a job, and the jobs I was getting was temp jobs and warehouse jobs. Like I don't want to do that. But some have gone through different things. Then it's like, if they're disabled vets and they can't get what they need as far as medicine, this, that, and the other, that's another factor. Or those who have gotten out and they're addicted to certain things, and they're hearing the voices in their head. They feel like somebody's attacking them, and this, that, and the other. That's a factor. If you've been to a war zone and you come back and you have PTSD and stuff like that, that's also a factor. Um, when, and again, when I got off active duty, I went through that. Like, this change of life and this, that, and the other. I can't deal with it, but I managed to deal with it. I had my bumps and bruises along the way, but I was never to the point where I was going to commit suicide or even thought about it. But it was stressful, very stressful. When I came back from Iraq, um, I remember my mother told me I should go and tell him I got PTSD, and I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, no, that might mean I have to go take medicine, and I'm not doing that. But it took me a while to adjust back to being home, like, because when I was over there in Iraq, it was like my alertness was way up here, and when I came back, it took a while for it to come down. Like, if I heard a car crash, a car screech, a loud boom, thunder, or whatever, I was jumpy and this, that, and the other. And some people that transition back is either slow or it never happens. So that's another factor. When it comes to veterans.
Yeah, I mean, I was never a veteran, but I can tell you this much. When my father transitioned from being in the military to civilian life, we as a family had to make that transition as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to being or going from a state of you can go on base, do whatever on base you want to not being able to get on base anymore,
Right.
that was a transition. It's like, what? You got to turn in all your identification cards, your ID card, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that just that alone uh, helps me be able to relate to what they're going through, because it's kind of like for those of us who have that military, uh, background or influence, especially if you're a brat like we are, you know exactly what it's like being on a military base. It's like a whole nother world within whatever community you are. Um, but yeah, I could see how making that transition from going to a world only, the few and the lucky have a chance to experience to going to, no, you can't do that anymore. It's almost like you're institutionalized,
Yeah.
for lack of a better experience, going from a military family to a civilian family. But people who live in rural areas, um, me being from Alabama, I know what it's like to live out in the middle of nowhere. Um, and to tell you the truth, back then, those were some of the most funnest times for me as a child growing up, because we didn't have a whole lot of money back then. That's when my father was just going in the military. But um, as they say, we were broke, but we didn't know it because we got everything we needed. My parents or grandparents always had a garden or some type of situation going on where we never went hungry. We never went, without having clothes or shoes or whatever the case may be. And we were always surrounded by family and friends. But I had my father's grandmother, which was the one who raised him. She lived out in a place where there's very few people who lived out there. But I could definitely see if you don't know how to keep yourself entertained or have something going on, it could lead to depression very easily.
Yeah. I've never had to deal with that because I've always been either in the city or somewhere close to where a things was popping. But I have passed through some rural areas, and I have always said to myself, I don't see how they do it. And I mean, like, you got a house here and another house like a half a mile away. It's like, nah, I can't do that. Mm-mm, there's no way. Like, it's either in my brain, I'm scared, or um, I'm just like, I don't see how they do it. Like, nah, I'm not doing
Yeah,
that. Not
definitely.
doing that. I am not doing that. Man, that's too much.
So the next one is sexual and gender uh, minorities.
Yeah, that yeah, that's a tough one for some individuals because they feel out of place and they feel um discriminated against and stuff like that. So the big thing about that, lesbian, gay, and bisexual kids are 3 times more likely than straight kids to attempt suicide. Um, for me, I think that this is an issue that needs to seriously be addressed in the home. Um, for the life of me, and I'm speaking from a person who was sexually abused as a child. Um, a child does not know what their sexuality is. They don't understand that and all the things that go with that. They don't understand the emotions or the mental impact of all of that. So it's interesting to say the least that parents are just allowing. Well, let me not say that. It's interesting that this is such a big issue at such a young age, and it's like it's very sad because you know we know as children we already have enough to deal with.
Right.
Fitting in, being popular, not being picked on, just you know being a black child. Um, but to add being lesbian, gay, or bisexual in certain communities or whatever the case may be, that's rough. Um, yeah, that's just rough.
Yeah. I remember when I was in a 11th grade, right? And back then, being gay or bisexual, whatever you want to call it, was not the normal.
Hmm.
People were actually getting picked on for that. Um, Again, me coming from an environment of being picked on as a young kid myself, I never could partake in picking on other people. Once I got to those higher age levels. But
Hmm.
anyway, there's this particular person named Harry. He was a black guy, kind of on a chunky side, and he was gay. And man, they would give this kid so much hell. I mean, just hell. Whether we were going to uh, vocational school or going on a field trip or whatever the case may be. And Harry, he took it, man. I mean, he really he wasn't a type that he'll fight you back or even say stuff back. He'll like whatever. For the most part, he just brushed it off. But I remember one time this this guy said something to another guy, and he was like, "Won't you be like Harry?" And he told him, "I'll stick my Harry
No, wow.
Peter in your mouth." and everybody busted out laughing, you know.
Mm,
And I remember sitting there thinking, now that's fucked up.
wow.
This man has absolutely nothing to do with what you guys got going on, but you're gonna pull him into your conversation, and then
Right.
both of y'all are both basically, you know, taking a crap on this man. But
Mm,
anyway, I just remember feeling so bad for him. And when you're a young person and you just trying to get through freaking life, man, you still trying to get a grip on everything that's going on around you, and having to deal with, you know, the circumstances of your sexuality, um, being put on front street, as they say. That's a big thing.
yeah.
So again, you got to deal with the regular stuff of being, you know, a young person, and then you got to deal with that. That's not an easy thing. Um, I don't encourage anyone to shit on someone because they see life differently, you know, as far as their sexual preferences.
Right.
I don't have a problem with anyone in that community.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem I've ever had is don't push that on kids. I think that, you know, these babies basically are just trying to figure life out. And you're up here trying to shove that stuff down their throat. Like, get out of here. But anyway, my heart goes out to people who've had to face those unfairness,
Yeah.
as they say.
Yeah. Shout out to those tuning in on Facebook for whatever reason. Chats on here are not going through. I just threw that in the chat, but the chat is not acting right. So I don't know if anybody is commenting on Facebook. But if you want to join the live, click that link, or if you want to comment with ease, hop over on YouTube. So middle-aged adults. That's a big thing these days. Middle-aged adults. So I want to look up some stats right quick, but middle-aged adults seem to be going through it when it comes
Hmm.
to this. Yeah, like again, I was talking earlier about you know, Twitch. He just you know took his life this past week, and for those of you that are Power Ranger fans, um, the one who played Tommy in many uh, seasons of the Power Rangers, he took his life last month. Um, for and his name, his real name, Jason David Frank. Never had any inkling that anything was going on with him. Um, the reports were saying that him and his wife got into an argument, and then next day they went to his hotel room and found him, dead. And with Twitch, it was like, you know, I know anytime I went on TikTok or anything, I saw him, his wife, his family dancing, smiling, and all this, that, and the other. And from what I read last was that he left home, checked into a hotel, and they did a health and welfare check, and they found him dead. Um, and these are people around our age. Um, I don't know. It kind of seems like there's a lot more pressure with people in our age group these days than it used to be. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on
I think there are, to a certain extent. Um, I feel like once you do reach a certain age, you're a vet
that? Mm,
because if you've gotten to, let's say, our age group, which is in your 40s, you know, you've been through some things. You're battlefield ready, as they say, um, because some things you brought on yourself, and some things just happened to you.
right.
And one thing we all know is life doesn't stop for anyone. You know, it's kind of like trying to stop time. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But when I hear about people in our age range um, deleting themselves, I I don't know. It's kind of a shocker to me because it's kind of like, dude, you've been through the fire and the rain. You've been through the hell and the glory. So nothing at this particular time should be foreign to you.
Mm.
You should know that, everything has a season, everything comes and everything goes. But,
Mm.
and again, I'm not bashing anyone who has, self deleted. I'm just simply saying for me, um, yes, I have my own trials and tribulations. I have days where I be thinking, what in the hell? You're like, but then I'll stop and I'll think it's not happening to me, it's happening for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear about, again, people in our age bracket um, committing such deeds to themselves, I really can't help but to one thing feel empathy for them, but the other side of me is like, you got to know by now, it's not gonna always be smooth sailing.
Right.
Like, you really are a life soldier. We came in this on this plane and we're here for the time being, but we're not gonna be here forever. So it's just like you're passing through.
Mm.
But yeah, I hate it.
Yeah. So some stats on this by age. Older adults, they made up 16.9% of the population in 2020, and 19.9% of them were suicides. Middle-aged people, 25.1% of the population in 2019, 31.3 of them suicides. Young people, 12.9% of the population 2020, 13.2% suicides. Um, Suicide is the third leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds.
Wow.
That's a lot.
It is.
That is a lot. Um, yeah, that's a lot.
I said I'm still blown away that the stats are steady going up.
And the interesting about it is, oh man, where is it? So the stats have gone down over the last 10 years, but they have also risen more recently. Um, so, hmm,
I guess the thing is we have more resources now more than ever,
yeah,
and that's a good thing. So I guess that's where my correlation difficulties lie, is because back when you could just reach a telephone or a payphone,
hmm,
they had numbers you could call then. I can't remember the exact number, but there was a suicide hotline that you could dial for free, if memory serves me correctly.
yeah, this one's still out there.
But it just seemed like back then it wasn't, like you just go on your phone, bam, you're right there.
Right? Yeah, yeah. I see what you mean now. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's again, it's just one of those things of you live and you learn. Um, and again, I take my hat off to anyone who can admit to themselves that I need help.
Yeah.
Let me reach out and get the help that I need. My hat totally goes off to them.
Yeah. And yeah, the other group is tribal populations. I guess you would those who live on Native American reservations and stuff like that. Um, I can understand. I mean, they've been through a lot, a whole lot. And that's a good point that Keisha put up. COVID definitely impacted the increase in death. Isolation was detrimental for a lot of people. Um,
True.
very, very true. You know, I don't know. For some, like me, I like being outside. So COVID did affect me a little bit, but I also did not mind not being bothered at times. Um, but for some, especially if they're like on the go type people who get an adrenaline rush from being out and doing things, I could definitely see how that could affect them because like it took me a while to get comfortable teleworking and like I was like I don't want to sit at home because I'll be depressed this that and the other. But once I got into the groove of it, I was cool. But and then when I saw like when I looked out and be like, you know, it is not that serious going outside because if I go outside, I might not come back in. Um, I in my head, I was like, I'm good. Let me just get comfortable with the fact that I got to be in the house.
Yeah. And just a disclaimer for everyone out there: we are not trained psychiatrists by no means. We're just two people having a conversation about a taboo topic. Um, but anyway, when COVID hit, and with the company that I work for and the career that I have, it still required me to uh, continuously move around, meaning go from job to job, because we are considered a necessity being in the water field. But it was just so weird, man, going from a spot where being on the freeway of it being jam packed, dang near everywhere you go in certain regions, to no one was out there. Like we're the only vehicle damn near out there, and every now and then we'll see another vehicle. That was just it was almost made us feel like we're at the end of the world. Like really,
Mm-hmm.
but I could see how people would be depressed, and because you're basically cut off from the rest of the world, dang near. Yeah, you had your phone, but you're stuck on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember us going to hotels and hotels being closed. And some of them were like, well, we only allowed to have so many people, and having you and your crew would push us over our limits.
Yeah.
So we had to drive from hotel to hotel just to find one to actually find a place to stay for the night. But all those things with the pandemic there took its effect on people. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people went through it because they had no one to talk to. They felt anyway, even though of course they had their phones or their neighbors, but
It's not the same.
again,
It's
yeah,
not the same.
you're only allowed to be out for so many hours. You're only allowed to go so far. Uh, you're not even allowed in some situations to go across state line. It was just crazy, man.
Mm. Yeah, Keisha says there was a 22.3% spike in ER trips for potential suicides by children aged 12 to 17 in the summer of 2020 compared to 2019, according to CDC's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. Um, you know, I can definitely understand um, kids going through it more, mainly because they can't deal with it like adults can. It's like, if we can't go outside, it's whatever. But their life depends on outside, and then they were forced to be, you know, on social media, whether it's by choice or whatever, but by circumstance on social media. So, and we already discussed the troubles that bring. So let's talk about the impacts of suicide and suicide attempts. Um, yeah. So suicide and suicide attempts affects people. The person who attempts or is successful at suicide, and it also it affects friends, family, and society. You know, again, you know, Jason Frank from Power Rangers, Twitch, that affected a lot of people. Um, it made a lot of people sad, and it made a lot of people, you know, hey, what's going on? Like, he was just happy. They were happy, you know. This, I didn't see the signs. This, that, and the other. You know, when somebody attempts suicide or somebody completes suicide, it causes people to, um, it causes a lot of pain
Right.
because, like, if someone I knew attempted or did it, you know, I would go through a whole bunch of, how come I didn't notice? Is there anything that I could have done? And you know, I would deal with my own depression, my own anxiety, my own stress, you know, and that on a global scale, that's just a lot of people who are dealing with that. Um, you know, when a famous person does it, the whole world knows. When a not famous person does it, only those people connected to that person knows. Um, and that's a stressor in itself.
Yeah, it is, man. It's the ripple effect, as they call it. Um, I had an associate of mine one time, very close associate. They were going through a difficult time in their life, very difficult. I mean, I'm not gonna speak on it. I don't name names, but that's the extent of it. It's very difficult. And I remember them calling me saying, "Man, I think I'm ready to clock out this bitch." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm caught off guard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm like, "Oh shit, what do I say to him? What do I say to this person
Mm-hmm.
to make them not want to take their own life?" So anyway, we just talked about everything we had gone through as kids.
Right.
Um, I was telling him, "Man, you've come too far to check out this bitch." But anyway, we talked and we talked. We talked some more. I finally was able to calm him down to a place of, okay, I'll wait until tomorrow, see how I feel. So at that point, uh, my associate, he and his father didn't have the best relationship, but they had a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I could think of at that time was, this is the time he needs you, and he needs you now.
Mm-hmm.
So I called his father. Um, I explained to his father within small details. You know, I kept everything kind of broad, but I was like, man, look, he needs you. I can't tell you everything that's going on, but right now, he needs you. So his father called him, and they talked for hours. And I think from that point on, him and his father have been tight.
Mm.
So it's just one of those things of, you know, you got to work through it, man. Having a connection with someone where you do feel like I can talk to you is so freaking important.
Yeah.
So, anyway, to make a long story short, that person is doing very well in life right now. That person has a family. That person has a business. That person is doing well in his community.
Yeah.
So, again, you just have to talk to people when they're going through things, man. You could be thinking everything's cool. You know, this person, they got it. They're mentally strong like you are.
Right.
But that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So when you see people in your environment going through things, even though they may not mention it to you, it's okay to call and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. I'm checking in on you."
Yeah. Yeah, man. We got like 10 minutes left on the broadcast, but I had a similar situation like that in 2017. I spoke on this on Donna's platform. Um, I was at the Rats reunion in Charlotte. My son and his mother called me three-way, and he was thinking about committing suicide. I was like, "What? Like, not my child? Like, no. What do you mean?" Um, you know, I straight went into uh, helpless parent mode.
Right.
Um, like, what do I say? Even though, I have some training in this, um, it was like, what do you say? Like, and your life, your child's life flashes right before your eyes, and it's like I'm stuck hearing my child say this, like where did I go wrong? And it's like you blame yourself, and then you search for the right thing to say, the perfect thing to say, or something to say to talk them off that ledge. Um, Thankfully, I was able to say some things to um, change his mind, but it's still when you get those phone calls, um, and I don't know, man. You get those phone calls, you're numb, you're crippled, man. Um, we as men, we can pretend to be tough as nails, but you know, when stuff like that happens, it is really jarring to every fiber in you.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't ever want to get those phone calls. I don't ever want to get a phone call saying, "Are you sitting down? You know, this is what happened." I mean, that's a level of emotions I don't, you know, I can handle it, but I can't handle it.
Right.
I don't want to experience that. Um, but yeah, before we get up out of here, for those in need, let me check this comment before I throw that up there. Um, Keisha says, this someone when she took a call like that, and the person said they had a gun in the car and was not sure they could keep themselves from using it. Yeah, um, that's very very hard to process. Um, yeah, it's a call that you never want to take. But for those out there, before we get up off of here, there are a lot of resources out there. You can call the text 988. Um, that's the new suicide hotline, and they have a chat line, 988lifeline.org. You can instantly chat with them. Talk to a pastor, talk to a first responder, trusted friend, family member, therapist, or counselor. They have mobile apps out there. The help is out there. So please reach out. Um, don't deal with this stuff alone. Um, you are valued. You are important. You are needed. You are loved. Um, you're valuable. So don't ever think that you're out there alone and that you have to deal with anything alone. Sunso, let you got any closing statements on this?
Yeah, man. It's just going back to the effect of how when someone leaves you, um, and you really got to think to yourself, what am I leaving behind? And in some cases, people have loved ones that they don't even consider is going to affect them. And I know that, like Donna was saying, that some people find that to be selfish. You're thinking in a selfish mind frame. But again, I'm just speaking for me. Um, Again, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It may seem dark as hell, and you like, is there light? I can't see down that far, but I've been in places where I felt like I'm on the bottom of the bottom. Like I have to look up to see the bottom. But just through, believing in a higher power and, just again thinking about the people. If I did something like that, the impact it would have on their lives. Yeah, I'm gone, so I don't feel the pain I feel anymore. But the thing is, I didn't want to leave those people in a state of trying to figure out how do I get through this. So there's many resources out here. That's what I'm trying to get at for our viewers and our listeners, man. And again, at the end of the day, it's just like high school, man. Once you leave that situation or that situation has passed, it's over.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever. I promise you, it don't. Shoot, we know that we're only here for a limited time. So basically, the way I see it is the best thing we can do is just try to live our lives to the best of our abilities. Be the best version you can of yourself. Like the very person that I'm talking to, or I was talking about, we had a conversation a little while back, and this person was telling me, he was like, man, for years I used to try to be like the people around me that I admire, like my uncles, my dad, some of my older cousins. But then I came to a place where I realized the only person I'm truly chasing is myself.
Yeah.
And I'm chasing the best version of myself every day. And to hear him say that and put it in that perspective, it was like, wow. Now that's a real epiphany right there. So again, man, nothing lasts forever. Get through it the best way you know how. There's no reason to hurt yourself, hurt anyone around you. It's just life, man, and we're all going through that on a daily basis. Just life. You'll get through it.
We'll get through it. And with that being said, I mean, we still had a few more talking points, but we'll get back to them on another date. But yeah, it's King and I Life podcast. We got one more live before the year is out. It's gonna be upbeat, so date to come. But that's all I got. Again, if you need help out there, 988 from any phone. Help is out there. Soul Touch of the Poet, King and I Life podcast.
Sounds so Lex, King and I Life podcast. You know how we do. We keep it 100 with you always.
Always. And we out.
Peace.